my opinion, there's three main skills in business in general. You gotta learn how to sell, you gotta learn how to build, you gotta learn how to lead. So you gotta learn how to get people to give you money for stuff, you gotta have the stuff to sell them, and then you gotta have people that work on your side to help deliver on those other two. If you can do those three things, you're unstoppable. And if you do one of those three things, you can make as much, like you can still make a ton of money, but if you can do all three, you're unbeatable. All you have to do is look for problems. You look for things that people hate. You look for inefficiencies. You just look for things that are nuisances. Like, what are things that people do every day that they hate doing? Like, and a big misnomer, I think, is that people think they need to have a new thing. You can start a cleaning business, become a billionaire. You can start a lawn care business, become a billionaire. You can start a roofing business, become a billionaire. Like, there's clear problems. Like, all you have to do is just do what everyone else is doing, learn how to sell, learn how to deliver consistently, and learn how to lead. Yes. If you do those three things, you can do just as well as everyone else and just do it better. Like, the single greatest skill, in my opinion, is being able to find a place that you can shut out external stimuli and you can focus.
Yes.
Because for me, the single highest ROI habit that I have is that for me, between 5 a.m. and noon, I have nothing on my calendar. It is just work, no meetings, and then all my meetings happen after noon. This is for the entrepreneur. Now, if you're like in a job right now, then it's got to be in the morning before you go to work and in the evening after you come back from work. But like, having that dedicated time, and if you're like, well, I'm not a morning person, fine, then just work late. Like, that's okay. Like, I've got billionaire buddies who are like, oh, I wake up at 10, but they work really late. That's their special time that no one bothers them. It tends to be at the bookends of the day, though, just from my experience, because in the middle of the day, you get pestered, and it's hard to get into that deep focus, that deep learning that you get when you really pour yourself into something. Most skills can be learned decently with about 20 hours of focused effort. 20 hours. Like, the first 20 hours of you actually doing something, you learn the most you're gonna learn about the thing. If you just consider by percentage of learning from like, you know nothing, to 20 hours in, you already have a really good understanding of the thing. The problem is that most people will take years to start the first hour. And so that habit that you're referencing is that my speed, at least now as I've gotten better at this stuff, is that like I try and detract the time from when I want to learn something or when I want to start doing something to starting it as soon as I can, because I just want to start getting through those 20 hours as fast as I can.
Yes.
And so that's just been a very tangible, because it seems like this amorphous thing, but there was a study that was done that was like, in the first 20 hours, you can learn almost any skill. Playing guitar, running an ad, doing you'll learn more in that first 20 hours than any other time. So it's like, then just get to that 20 hours and don't delay.
Yes.
And that's been one of the deepest lessons I've had, because it took me 4 years to learn how to build a website, and it took me 1 day to actually learn. That first hour is you paying down the fear of uncertainty. It's all these fears of like not being enough. What if I feel stupid? Because you have felt stupid when you try to figure something else out. But like, if you remember how hard it was to learn how to tie your shoes when you were a kid, right? Because it's like, I have to remember, and then this one, and then the 2 bunny ears, the whole thing, right? But like, now you can do it in your sleep. And it's just the emotions we have about beginning work, because the judgments we're going to put on ourselves about how we're doing. But if we can remove the judgment of how we're going to do and say, I assume I'm going to suck. And all I'm doing is I'm going to start pulling the thread of this 20 hours. That's my only goal, is to start sucking. That's it. I just want to start sucking rather than not. They should focus on one thing in general rather than lots of different things that you're not sure about. Because if you're starting out, everything looks like an opportunity. So the correct answer is all of them are opportunities, but all of them won't work unless you pick one, right? So you have to say no to all the other mistresses. So boom, you pick one. You have to learn how to advertise, which I define as the process of making known. So how do you let other people know about the stuff you sell? So you have to advertise. And then once people engage with whatever advertisement you have to sell them. So advertising is the first skill, selling them is the second skill. And then product would be the third skill, which is the thing that you're ultimately advertising and selling. Doing the same thing consistently. So usually once people do it in the beginning, they're sporadic, they're not consistent with it. Just the act of doing the same thing every day usually gets people to 100,000 a month, which sounds crazy to probably people listening, but most people who think that's crazy also haven't done it consistently for an extended period of time. And so I use something that I call the rule 100, which is 100 primary actions, whether that's 100 minutes of content creation per day, 100 reach outs per day, $100 of ad spend per day. You have to pick one of them, but 100 per day. And you do that for 100 days, and I promise you'll be making 6 figures if you do that. And so the 3 common traits that they had found were, 1, that people have a superiority complex. They believe they're better than others, and they believe that they deserve more than everyone else does, and that they can accomplish big goals, right? So they have a bigger vision because they believe they deserve it, or whatever it is, that they were able to identify that. The second thing that they were able to identify is that they had crippling insecurity, and which is a paradox of paradoxes. They feel they'll never be enough, and they'll always be measured against the things that they've achieved. And so you've got this crazy dynamic between they think they're better than everyone, they think they deserve more, they want to go after this big hill, and at the same time, they fear they'll never be good enough, and they'll never actually achieve it, and they actually suck. And then the third piece, which kind of adds the beautiful like mix of this, is impulse control. Yeah. And so they're able to control their actions and focus on a single thing for an extended period of time. And so if you put those three things together, it's like you've got a big goal that's pulling you this way. You've got this big fear that you are running away from, and then you've got impulse control to keep you focused on the one thing that matters.
Yes.
And if you do that, if you are the type of person who has those traits, then you are very likely to be successful. Your ability to delay gratification, it's not just like, oh, I can wait a week or I can wait a month, but I made this tweet that went pretty viral. And it was like, if you can wait a year, you can make a ton of money. Like if you can do something for 12 months, you can not need for financial goodness pretty much for the rest of your life. I'm not saying you're gonna be hella rich, right, but you're not gonna need for anything if you can wait 12 months. If you can wait a decade, you're going to be above the 1%. If you can wait 10 years for an outcome, be able to do the doing without seeing the result for 10 years, you will be able to be above most achievement of most people. And if you can wait a lifetime and you don't even need to see the result of your doing this, even while you are alive, but know that it may get done after you pass, then I believe that you can change the world. And I mean that. And so I think that if people can just extend the time horizon that they're measuring themselves on, they can just do so much more. One of the things that's shaped my life in terms of business stuff is understanding the concepts of leverage, right? And so a lot of people are limited by either the skills, the beliefs, or the traits they have, right? And so the skill deficiency is the easiest one to fix. It's like, go do repetitions in a community of people who are also doing repetitions to learn the same skill, and you will learn it quickly, right? That's the thing. Then you have traits and beliefs, which is a little bit more amorphous, right? And so from a beliefs perspective, you need someone to tell you stories that you believe to be true that conflict with your view of reality. The evidence of their story being truer than yours, then it's like a frame control. That frame now wins, and that becomes the new lens that you see everything through. And so I had a friend who had a fitness app, and he was doing $20,000 a month. He was a CrossFit competitor, really high up. He didn't win. Of course, it's like he didn't win, so he didn't want to tell anybody that he had an app because he didn't think he deserved it. He didn't deserve to have an app because he didn't want anyone to know, because he's like, how dare I make a fitness app? Because I was only 4th in the world, you know what I mean, or whatever.
Is that it?
Then all of a sudden, he talked to somebody, he got over it, and then he just started just telling people he had an app, and he went from like $20,000 a month to $100,000 a month. And so it's not that his skills changed. It's not that his traits changed. He was still just as hardworking, looked the same, et cetera. I was like, it's just his beliefs, right? And I'm sure in the entrepreneur space, one of the most common traits is focus. Inversion thinking, which is where you solve problems in reverse. So for example, if you want to have a good marriage, rather than asking the question, how do I have a good marriage? You ask the question, how would it destroy my marriage? And then you list out all the ways to destroy your marriage, and then you do the exact opposite of that. And what's interesting is that our brains are much better at finding problems than they are at finding solutions. And so what we do is we harness this innate ability that we have to find the problems, and then after finding every possible problem we can imagine, every threat imaginable, which evolutionarily we're designed to look for, then flip that in reverse to find our solutions. The reason that inversion thinking is so powerful is that we can use our brain to find threats more easily than we can find solutions. And so if we think about your business career, or you think about your marriage, or you think about your body, or you think about whatever it is, your money goals, think about the ways to destroy it. I just gave you 28 different ways that you can be poor. When you reverse them and you make those the rules for living that you have, then what happens is you succeed by accident because you avoid the pitfalls. Because the thing is if you don't make many mistakes, you succeed without trying, because all you're doing is just focusing on just not making these stupid mistakes that most people do. There is no shortcut. I was on a podcast where they were asking me, they're like, it seems like you've had this great success really quickly. Quick is relative, right? But he was like, and if the people who are listening want to shortcut that success, what do they do? And I was like, you're not. That's the answer. You're not going to, because the skill is the base of the pyramid. It's the foundation, right? If your foundation's this small because you only spent 6 months doing a Rocky cutscene, then the peak of that pyramid is small. But you give me a base that's like this, and it's hundreds of feet deep, you can build a skyscraper taller than anything you've ever seen, right? But the foundation is the piece that no one can take from you. No one can take my experiences from it, right? And the skills that were shaped from that. And so right now, if you're not seeing what you want to see, it's because you haven't put the time in. You haven't put the time into the bar. You haven't gotten the reps in. You haven't done the volume, right? And so if you see someone that is doing something better than you, then go and observe and then execute.